Hello there everyone, welcome back to another Gate Ruler video. In this one I'm going to be talking about all of the 4 stars in set 1, and I'm basically going to be ranking them. Essentially, which ones should you care about, which ones should you keep an eye out for when we get the game over here in English, and which ones should you be buying. So yeah, this is just going to be a general sort of power ranking, and I'll start off by saying they're pretty much all kinda good, with like a couple of exceptions. Most of them are pretty strong, so this is more so just going to be me going, well, here's a discussion on the 4 stars and why they're good, rather than why they're perhaps bad. Let's start off with, I suppose I should classify the tiers. So D is just pretty bad. I would not buy it. C is quite niche, you probably don't need it, and it's not too strong. B is passable, pretty decent, solid 4-star, probably worth getting. A is a very strong 4-star, but you might not need that many of it. And S is like just ridiculous. You probably need this, and you probably need it in high quantities. So let's get started. And we'll start off by talking about AiboYT here. So this is one of the big boys for the Genesis summon deck, and I think he belongs in A tier. He's very good. He's healing when you Genesis summon. Very frequently you will have one of your sets to heal one of your Genesis summons, so a lot of the time you can just make this an instant heal 2 for 1 card when there's a Shiori, who we'll talk about in a little bit. And, you know, this is also a breakthrough 2 unit. The only downside to this card is that it is 6 defense, which is obviously good for balance purposes, because if this was 7 I think it would be way too good, so it being a 6 defense is solid. Overall this is just a very, very strong card and a very solid hard play option because it maintains the breakthrough anyway, even if you did not Genesis summon it. So yeah, very strong start. Next we have got Viola, and so this is a really good card, but I'm gonna put it in B tier because 1, it's surprisingly difficult to get off. It's probably not going to happen that often, and 2, you really don't need that many of it. Like, generally speaking, when you are going to have the 5 darkness to return, they're probably not going to be like different levels, so you're going to find yourself going into Vastoris Rex a lot more often. And, you know, 2, sometimes you're not going to want to play him because nuking your own board is actually worse than, and your opponent's board is actually worse than just not nuking anything. So, yeah, I think this card is decent, but I don't think it's that good. Certainly, in my testing I found that like it's a 1 to 2 of anyway in Darkness. Like, you'll run it, but like it's pretty niche is what I'm saying. It's good, but it's pretty niche. Next we've got Leni here, and again this is another one where it's sort of like, it's kind of in between. I'm going to put it in A because it's kind of just like pretty essential for Abyss Summon, but like you could get away with just running the starter deck one, but I wouldn't recommend it. You know, you're getting the mill here as a bonus, you kind of just run it, so in that sense, like, yeah, it's pretty good. But again, the more and more I test Darkness, the more and more I'm like, maybe making it too reliant on Abyss Summon's actually kind of bad. You just want to sort of have that as an option, and you want to be kind of abusing other powerful cards. So yeah, putting it in A, putting it on the same tier as AiboYT, feels kind of bad, but at the same time, like, it is such an essential piece, like, not putting it there would be pretty ridiculous. And finally, for Volnar, we've got Shiori. And this is going to be the top of A for now. It's not an S tier because whilst it's a total staple for Genesis Summon, you know, it's not overly useful in anything outside of that. And whilst very powerful, of course, you have 1 card making lots of different things. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's like super, super staple. To give you an example of cards I consider super staple, I guess we can get these out of the way immediately. To be fair, 1000 Year Cherry Tree is such a ridiculous card, such a staple in Apprentice. This card is a 4 of from now until the end of time in that ruler. It's just so good, letting you extend, top check, be more consistent, hit the options you want to hit. And it drives, so you're getting your overdrives as well. It's just insane. Zap, zap, zap. Similar reasons. Ridiculous removal, super powerful, useful in a huge number of top tier decks. Yeah, just generally really good, and like the best removal in the game outside of Destiny Sword. Though of course Destiny Sword is a 3-star, and this is potentially better depending on what your opponent's board is, because this can just be a board wipe. So yeah, super good. Thought I might as well get those out of the way now. Okay. Let's keep going then. We will go on to Hades now, and Hades I think is very good. I really like this card. The biggest problem with Hades will be when you play it and you don't want to use the effect, which is a pretty good problem to have. Checking it as a counter is going to obviously heal, and it's going to give you something to your defensive zone, something like a Docklefar or a Jack or a Banshee or a Cat Sith familiar. Lots of options there. Yep, just a very good card and very easy to Abyss summon with 3 strikes, so it's going to hit face hard. All around very, very solid. Hellkong, this is another really good card, but I'm going to put it in B, honestly. It's really scary, but like it's just not as good as the other stuff. I'm putting Alioni in B as well. Yeah, I just don't think he can compete. Buster Kong is really strong, but 4 burn is just so many cards that you want to remove have 5 or 6, and needing to be set up with your damage buffers for this to be super good kind of feels bad. Also, you know, as a hard play option, it's relatively restrictive to get this off in a Knight to Zood list, which is primarily how you'd be playing it. I'm not saying the card is bad, by no means, let me clarify, I'm not saying the card is bad. I just think that it's a bit restrictive, and sort of like, you know, like Viola, the situations when you're going to be able to use this card to its full effect are not super common. Alioni should be above Buster Kong though. Can we just do this? Okay, there we go. Alright. Next we got Vicky. This is a strong C tier. This card's okay. Being a level 1 with 2 strike is definitely valuable. It's reasonable stats, and being able to just play it so for example, going second, if you have this, if you open it and your opponent, like, you know, they happen to play an event, they might play like a Star Song or like 1,000 Year Territory or something, and you can just go, okay, I'm just going to play this. That's quite nice. You're getting a free unit on board essentially, because you're going to be untapping, and you know so you're not paying that energy, and you're not losing a summon cap. You just get to play it for free, so it's pretty good. But that's a very niche scenario where the card is particularly useful. In pretty much all scenarios, I would prefer the next card, which is Alice. Now, of course, that's why Alice has a counter limit, but Alice is super good, and I've just got to put it in A. I think this card is really, really strong. If your opponent is not playing with Alice in mind, which they're definitely not going to be in game 1, then you can just massively cuck them by like essentially nulling one attack when they swing in. Now suddenly they're going to have to swing in with Ruler probably to remove this, and you know, it's just soaking up attacks. Card is really good. The counter is okay, but generally speaking, just having something you can play from hand means that 1, it's not going to get instantly removed by like set removal, which is by far the more common way to deal with defensive options. And 2, it's just a lot more unexpected in my experience. I'm a lot more surprised by an Alice usually than I am by a set doing something. So it's just something that, like, unless your opponent is actively thinking about it, because it's only 1 card in the game, that you're just going to be able to surprise them with, and it's a very valuable tool. On top of that, to null a Ruler's Tackle something for pretty cheap cost. So yeah, I'm a big fan. Next, we've got our next C tier card, and that is this. I'm really not a fan of this card. I understand the utility of it, being able to just pop like a useless set, for example, that you don't really care about, to remove something very valuable on your opponent's field is good, but and Obstacle is obviously very powerful as well. But fundamentally, I just don't think it's that good. Like, it's really hard to justify the space as a level 2. You know, you got to consider, like, Apprentice in Space in Apprentice is tight. It's very tight. So when you're you're putting stuff together like that, this is not necessarily a card you're even going to consider. And even in Highlander, which is far more like lenient on the space, I would rather play other cards than this. It's just a bit too restrictive to go off like super well. It's okay. It's just one of those cards where like you kind of need to already be ahead for you to like make full use of this. And in those scenarios, it's just kind of a win more card. So yeah, I'm just not a massive fan of it. I think it's okay. It's just like, and again, none of these are bad. It's just I think this is probably the worst. Singles pricing has reflected that. Okay, next we are on to Gashadokuro, and this is, I'm going to put this in S tier as well. This is really useful in a lot of decks, like basically any robo deck, pretty much any Apprentice you imagine deck, you're going to want to consider this. Military focus deck, this is really nice. Don't sleep on just having a essentially a 3 attack soak in your center, because that like breakthrough is not super common, and if your opponent doesn't have breakthrough, this is essentially just going, okay, your turn's nothing with the current rulers in the game. Like you just, okay, fine, you get to clear my center, and if they don't clear your center, they're leaving this up, which is a 7 attack strike 2 breakthrough unit. So that's scary. Gashokuro is very good. These are the 3 most expensive cards in the game in S tier, I feel like I should say. So you know, shouldn't be overly surprising that I ranked them as highly as I have. They are rather good. Next we've got Arumasaki. This card is okay. Being able to reduce... The problem I have with it is if it came with a charge, I would be a lot happier about this card existing, but at the moment it's vulnerable to a huge amount of removal in the game. It's good. Reducing all damage to 1 is good, but it's not that difficult to clear. You know, vanillas will deal with it pretty easily, and you know, the effect to yes, okay, cool, you can like nuke your whole back row to nuke your opponent's board, but that requires setup, losing your back row, like not getting value out of it. It's like one of those things where it's like, okay, this card is letting me convert dead value into value, but then I have to play something that I'm okay with it being dead value, which is already pretty bad, and then I'm playing this card just to convert a bad card I'm already playing into potentially like an okay card. Seems like kind of a neg. It's not a bad card, it's just like, what I mean is, it's hard to justify in like Apprentice. In Genesis, I've been using this, and this is better. You know, you in the build I was using, you run some cards that you're not necessarily always going to be able to play just due to energy limits. So you can just put those down and actually get rid of those. They're more valuable as counters, and in that deck, I found it's worked pretty well. But yeah, just as a general thing, it's good. It's not that good. I really am a fan of the design though, so hopefully we'll see it be more viable, or potentially we'll see a new version of this in set 2. Next we've got Arthur, and this card is crazy. Pretty restrictive in the decks you can play it in to full effect. It's a level 3, it's taking up counter space. It's a hell of a lot better in Apprentice because you don't pay costs. Leaving yourself 3 energy open to play this is pretty tough in Knight, but when you do get it off, it'll swing the game. It'll pretty much always swing the game. Your opponent is usually not going to be able to deal with it, especially if you set it on that like final turn, which is relatively rare to be fair. Usually you set it a couple turns before you're screwed, but you know, if your opponent doesn't instantly remove it, this is super good. And even if you see the early game, this is still really nice because it's a double attacking robo. So in the robo deck, you can clear something and emergency recombination into it, or you can clear 2 things. You can leave this in defensive zone as a 4 HP damage soak. The card's just strong, is the point. The card is just very strong, and I'm a big fan. Next, we've got Id Tiger, and this is another really, really good card. It's only really good in Beasts, but in Beasts it's terrifying because guaranteeing lethal is obviously good. If you could get 2 of these out, for example, that's you know, that's the thing. That is a thing that your opponent is not going to like. So yes, it's a good card. It's a very good card. Next, we have got Malevolous Prime. Actually, before we go on, am I confident with Shiori being... Yeah. Malevolous Prime. I'm putting this at the top of A because basically the reason I think this card is so good is it kind of single-handedly shuts down all the special summon matchups, which means that you just kind of, if you get this early enough, you just get to go, okay, cool, well, I'm ending your turns so I can just like keep getting ahead against like a lot of very popular decks in the meta. This is also usable in a deck that like Crime Lords are just so strong anyway, and this card is so sticky, so hard to deal with a lot of the time when you've got like a bad man's out or something. That is going to frustrate the opponent to no end. This card is just super good, very easy to get out, and yeah, just yeah, super strong. And finally, we have got White Bone Princess, and I'm going to put this at the top B. I think it's a strong card. The problem is, of course, if your opponent has just swarmed the board with a lot of tiny things, then they don't really care about using this as a counter, and it's a hard play. It's a pretty big neg. You're paying 2 for a 4/4/2, which is not good, and its effect is only counter. You don't even get it when you play it. So yeah, overall, that is my tier list. That's my thoughts on the strength of the cards in the 4-star category. Let me know. I'm aware I'm blaspheming for Hellkong. I'm apologise, Monkey strong, but Monkey not that strong. But let me know what you think in the comment section down below. And I figured I'd let you know I'm probably not going to be uploading a huge amount over the next week or so, taking some time off, and I've got work to do and stuff. So you know, gotta relax a bit during Christmas, but I've got work I need to do too. So going to be taking a little break, but general uploads will resume relatively shortly. I just feel I'll let you know if you see. There was like a few times where I'd go like I skipped a couple days recently as well. Like I'd just skip a day or here and there. I'm going to be skipping a few days. But I figured I'd let you know. Anyway, that's it. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, like, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one in probably like a few days to a week. Cheers.